Usually when we talk about a business succeeding, there is this comforting expectation of physical reality.
Right, like a physical brick and mortar thing.
Exactly. Think about opening a neighborhood coffee shop. You unlock the doors on opening day, you turn on the espresso machine, and, well, even if only one single customer walks in during that first hour, you can still sell them a latte. You still provide value.
Yeah, because the underlying math of that physical business is straightforward. You have supply, you have demand, and, they meet at a cash register. The environment is static.
But the moment you step out of that physical reality and into the world of software and digital platforms, that comforting coffee shop logic completely
Oh,
shatters.
absolutely. It is a competitive landscape that operates on paradoxes,
Hmm.
where the rules of physics just seem to work in reverse.
It's the absolute definition of a zero-sum war for our attention. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we are talking directly to you.
Whether you are, actively building a digital product, trying to navigate these massive tech giants for your career, or just insanely curious about why certain apps dominate your phone's home screen while thousands of others vanish.
Right. Our mission today is to decode the hidden mechanics of how billion-user networks actually grow. And we are pulling the architecture for this entirely from Andrew Chen's deep research in the book, The Cold Start Problem.
And to do that, we really have to establish a baseline and just strip away the jargon. Because the phrase network effects might be the single most overused buzzword in the entire tech industry today.
Oh, 100%. It's treated like a magic incantation. When you ask someone how a company like Uber or Airbnb demolished their competitors, people just wave their hands and say, oh, it's network effects.
Right, which is like saying a commercial jet flies because of aerodynamics. I mean, it might be technically true, but it tells you absolutely nothing about how the turbine engine was engineered.
Or how the thrust is generated, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we want to understand the engine, we actually have to leave the modern internet behind entirely. The core concept predates software by almost a century.
Wait, a century?
Yeah, in 1908, the president of the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, what we now know as AT&T, was a man named Theodore Vail. And he observed something profoundly strange about the product he was selling.
Okay, what was it?
He noted that a telephone sitting on a desk without a physical connection at the other end of the line is not even a toy. It is functionally one of the most useless objects in the world.
Wow, yeah. A single phone is a paperweight. Two phones become a communication tool. A million interconnected phones revolutionize global commerce. So the value of the product isn't the plastic and wires.
No, the value is the invisible web of users. A network effect, at its most basic mechanical level, happens when a product becomes more valuable to its existing users with each new user who joins.
Right.
But the journey to reach that state of exponential compounding value is incredibly fragile.
So let's start right there, at the beginning. Because for decades, Silicon Valley has worshipped this mathematical concept called Metcalfe's law.
Oh, right, the famous curve.
Yeah, it essentially states that a network's value grows as the square of its users. It paints this beautiful, upward-sloping mathematical curve. But I look at that formula, and I really have to call it out. Metcalfe's law completely ignores the reality of day one.
It does.
I mean, it assumes going from 100 users to 200 users is great, but it tells us absolutely nothing about the mechanics of going from 0 to 1. Like, what happens when you walk into an empty room?
Well, that blind spot is exactly what we call the cold start problem.
Right.
And it is vital to understand that at their inception, network effects are not a positive, upward-sloping force at all.
They aren't.
No, they are an actively destructive force. If you download a brand new dating app or, your company adopts a new workplace chat tool and nobody else is there to interact with,
You don't stick around.
right, you close the app and never open it again. This is called an anti-network effect.
So a subscale network doesn't just sit there in a neutral state waiting to grow. It actively repels the few users it has.
Precisely. To borrow a concept from ecology, this behaves exactly like the alley effect.
The alley effect. Okay, break that down for us.
In nature, certain animals rely entirely on their population density for survival.
Yeah.
Think of a mob of meerkats in the desert, or a massive school of sardines in the ocean.
Okay.
Meerkats require a certain number of individuals so they can take turns acting as sentinels, watching for predators.
Oh.
And sardines move in massive, coordinated bait balls to create a visual illusion that confuses sharks.
But if their population dips below a certain critical threshold?
The entire defensive mechanism breaks down. They can no longer protect each other. The group doesn't just slowly shrink, it collapses entirely, and the population plummets to zero.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a software network operates the exact same way. If it lacks a critical density of interconnected users, it crosses that ecological threshold and tears itself apart.
I want to look at how terrifying that alley effect is in the real world. Andrew Chen shares this incredibly vivid story of standing inside Uber's San Francisco war room.
Well, this is a great example.
Right, so it's a Friday night in December, like 8 p.m. The office is buzzing, massive monitors are glowing with global metrics. Travis Kalanick, the CEO at the time, is pacing the room in red sneakers, staring obsessively at the data for San Francisco and Los Angeles.
And the data was indicating a catastrophic collapse.
Yeah. A competitor, Lyft, had started offering a massive $250 referral bonus to drivers. Because it was the busy holiday season, Uber was suddenly losing its sentinels, to use the meerkat metaphor.
Drivers were simply logging out of the Uber app and logging into the competitor's app.
And this triggers an immediate death spiral. Because drivers are leaving, the software has less supply. That means wait times for a ride shoot up from 3 minutes to 15 or 20 minutes.
And what do riders do when the wait time is 20 minutes?
They cancel.
Exactly.
And when riders cancel, the remaining drivers on the road get frustrated because they aren't making money, so they log off too. The entire city's network was rapidly unwinding into what Uber engineers called a zero.
A zero. A completely failed ecosystem.
Yeah. To stop that collapse, they couldn't just run an advertising campaign. They had to forcefully inject liquidity back into the system. Uber immediately launched an aggressive $750 driver referral bonus just to rebalance the supply and demand.
Because if they hadn't, the anti-network effects would have driven the entire San Francisco market back to the cold start phase.
So just to give you a quick mini recap of this first phase, if you were building a network today and mapping out a 30-day launch plan, week 1 is entirely about surviving this phase. And your first key metric to watch is wait times, or really time to value.
Right. And the very first network killer mistake you can make here is expecting Metcalfe's law to save you. Expecting organic growth on day 1 is a death sentence.
Definitely. So if a small subscale network naturally acts like a vulnerable school of sardines and gets eaten alive by the environment, how do you even survive day 1? You clearly can't just launch an app to the whole world and hope for the best.
No, you survive by engineering an atomic network.
An atomic network?
Yes. This is the absolute smallest possible network that is stable and can sustain its own engagement. It is the core molecular unit of a successful product. You don't try to terraform the entire planet. You build one tiny, hermetically sealed greenhouse.
Let's look at a historical equivalent for this. Back in 1958, Bank of America invented the first modern credit card, but they didn't mail it out to the entire United States.
No, that would have been a disaster.
Right. They dropped it entirely on one day in one specific isolated city, Fresno, California. They targeted local merchants and local residents simultaneously.
They engineered artificial density. They needed the network to be tight enough that a consumer could walk out of their house and actually find a local hardware store that accepted this weird new piece of plastic.
Because if Bank of America had spread those exact same 60,000 cards evenly across the entire state of California,
no consumer would have ever found a participating merchant. The friction would have been too high, and the product would have died instantly.
we see the exact same architectural strategy today with Slack.
Oh, Slack is a perfect example.
Right. Slack didn't launch with a massive global Super Bowl commercial. It was actually born from the ashes of a failed video game startup called Tiny Speck.
Yeah, and to survive the cold start, they manually onboarded tiny beta networks of just 3 to 10 coworkers at a time. The founder was personally answering thousands of customer support tickets just to monitor the health of those tiny groups.
That's intense. Why so small?
Because for a workplace chat tool, 3 to 10 people on the same active team is the atomic unit. That is the minimum threshold required to generate enough daily messages so that those specific people feel compelled to keep checking the app.
Okay, I understand the logic of the greenhouse, but I have to push back here. We are talking about the internet.
Sure.
You have access to billions of people instantly with zero distribution cost. Why would you artificially starve your own product? Like, why did Tinder intentionally restrict its initial launch exclusively to parties at the University of Southern California instead of letting anyone with a smartphone download it?
That's a great question. It's because not all users are created equal. If you launch globally, you dilute your most precious resource in the hard side of your network.
The hard side. Break down the mechanics of that.
Okay, in every single network, there is a minority of users who do the heavy lifting and create disproportionate value for everyone else. Think about Wikipedia.
Okay.
Hundreds of millions of people casually read Wikipedia, but a microscopic fraction of users actually do the grueling work of writing, editing, and citing the articles. Those creators of the hard side.
Oh, I see. So for Uber, it's the drivers.
Exactly.
For Airbnb, it's the people willing to let strangers sleep in their spare bedroom.
Precisely. The hard side requires specialized attention, specialized software tools, and often deep financial subsidies to stick around. If you blast your app to the entire internet, you get a flood of casual consumers. But your hard side users will be spread too thin, they won't see any value, they will churn, and without them, your network collapses. You restrict your launch to keep the hard side tightly clustered and happy.
Okay, so time for our next mini recap. If we are back to our hypothetical 30-day plan, week 2 is all about capturing and subsidizing that hard side.
Yes. And your second key metric here is hard side retention. How many of those core creators or providers are staying active?
And the second network killer mistake.
The big bang launch. Trying to launch globally too soon and diluting your density.
Okay, so we've successfully built one stable greenhouse. We avoided the big bang. We have one college campus for Tinder or one corporate team for Slack. But an app isolated to one campus isn't a billion-dollar company.
No, it's not.
How do we spread this ecosystem without the outside environment killing it? How do we break out of the greenhouse?
You have to push the market to the tipping point.
The tipping point.
Yeah, this is the moment when the momentum finally shifts. Building that first atomic network is grueling, manual labor. But once you have a blueprint, you start duplicating it. And as the overall network grows, each subsequent market you enter becomes slightly easier to conquer.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. It's less like pushing a boulder and more like a controlled contagion. Each new node lowers the resistance for the next.
And the sources detail some incredibly clever and frankly manipulative strategies for engineering that contagion. Let's look at the invite-only strategy.
LinkedIn utilized this masterfully in their early days. They've used an invite-only mechanic not just to create an illusion of exclusivity, but to engineer high-quality trust density.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning if you joined LinkedIn, you couldn't just walk in off the street. You had to be invited by someone already inside.
Which solves the empty room problem mechanically. When you finally got access and logged in, you weren't staring at a blank screen. The software instantly connected you to the coworker who invited you. Your personal network already had a density of 1.
Exactly. Another fascinating mechanical bypass is the come for the tool, stay for the network strategy.
Instagram is the textbook case study here.
Great, it really is.
This one is brilliant because it sidesteps the alley effect entirely. Instagram didn't launch as a social network. It launched as a single-player photo filter app.
Right, because back in 2010, smartphone cameras were terrible.
Oh, they were awful. So Instagram offered a utility, a tool that made your bad photos look vintage and cool. You didn't need any friends on the app to get value out of that tool.
Right. You bypass the cold start because a single-player tool doesn't require a network to function. But once millions of people were using the tool to edit photos, Instagram's architecture quietly shifted.
They started funneling those users into a centralized feed.
Exactly. Slowly transitioning an isolated utility into a massive, interconnected social network.
Come for the cool filter, stay for the social validation. But what if you don't have a killer single-player tool?
Well, sometimes you have to resort to Flintstoning.
Flintstoning. Named after the cartoon where Fred Flintstone uses his own bare feet to power his car?
Exactly. It is the art of faking the network until it becomes real.
The founders of Reddit notoriously did this. When they launched, the site was a ghost town, so the founders literally coded dozens of fake user accounts.
Oh, yeah. They spent all day manually submitting links under different names and commenting on their own posts.
Which is wild. If you visited Reddit as a real user, it visually looked like a bustling, vibrant community.
They were artificially simulating the Sentinels. They faked the alley effect just long enough for real users to feel safe joining the ecosystem. It is completely unscalable, grueling manual labor, but it works.
It's pure hustle. And speaking of hustle, look at how Uber forced their early city launches to tip. The operations teams were doing insane stunts to artificially spike liquidity.
Oh, the kittens.
Yes. In the middle of the day when driver demand was low, Uber would deliver on-demand kittens to corporate offices. Or they would summon ice cream trucks.
It sounds like a gimmick, but mechanically, it served a vital purpose. They needed a catalyst. By creating these massive artificial spikes in rider demand for ice cream, They gave the hard side, the dryers, a financial reason to stay on the road during dead hours.
That lowered wait times across the board, which eventually attracted real riders who just needed a ride to a meeting.
Right.
So, hitting our recap rhythm here, week 3 of your launch plan is all about that unscalable hustle, flintstoning your way to the tipping point.
Yes, and the third network killer mistake you have to avoid is relying on that manual hustle forever, because you can't hand-deliver kittens indefinitely.
Right. And your third metric to track is your atomic network density. Is the contagion spreading from one team or campus to the next?
Exactly. At some point, the manual peddling has to stop. The contagion has to spread on its own.
And that transition is what we call escape velocity. This is where the manual hustle is entirely replaced by automated software loops. I always thought of a network effect as this one invisible aura that surrounds a successful company. But the sources shatter that myth entirely. At escape velocity, it's not one force. It is a trio of forces engineered directly into the code base.
Exactly. It breaks down into 3 distinct mechanical systems. First is the acquisition effect. This is how the software acquires new users without human intervention.
Think of Dropbox.
Yes. They build a viral loop directly into the product.
Yeah.
If you invite a friend, both of you get extra cloud storage for free. The software incentivizes the user to do the marketing. As the network grows, your customer acquisition cost mathematically approaches 0.
Wow. And the second system is the engagement effect. The product actually rewires user behavior to become stickier as the density increases.
Consider the algorithmic timeline of Twitter.
Oh, okay.
In the early days, it was a chronological list of what your tech friends had for lunch. You might check it once a week. But mechanically, as journalists, politicians, and massive news organizations joined, the algorithm began curating high-value nodes. The software actively pushes you up the engagement ladder.
It transitions you from a casual weekly observer to a daily obsessive checking for breaking news. The network density upgrades the use case.
Exactly. And the third system is the economic effect. As the network expands, your monetization mechanisms become exponentially more efficient.
It's a data density game.
Yep. The larger the network, the more granular user data you possess. That data feeds your algorithms, allowing you to price services dynamically or place highly targeted advertisements.
Yeah.
Your revenue per user climbs, which gives you more capital to feed back into the acquisition loops.
So the software itself becomes a self-sustaining, perpetual motion machine. It acquires, engages, and monetizes automatically.
Right.
When a company reaches escape velocity, they look completely invincible.
But ecology teaches us that nothing grows exponentially forever. Every environment has a carrying capacity. The ecosystem always pushes back.
So for a quick recap here, week 4 of your plan is pivoting to automate those 3 loops. And your fourth metric to track is your click-through rate on those acquisition loops.
Exactly.
Because that brings us to the ceiling. Just when the network is at its most powerful, the very forces that built it start to choke it. The network begins to generate anti-network effects at scale.
Yes, and the most obvious constraint here is simple saturation.
Yeah.
You simply run out of susceptible nodes to infect.
eBay experienced this brutally, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They effectively captured every single Beanie Baby and antique collector in the United States. The local market was completely saturated. To maintain growth, they had to frantically layer on complex international geographies and entirely new product categories.
Which stretched their original atomic network to the breaking point.
Exactly. Then you have the mechanical degradation of your acquisition loops, which the industry elegantly refers to as the law of shitty click-throughs.
The law of shitty click-throughs. I love that.
It is an unavoidable phenomenon of user psychology. Users evolve blindness to your marketing. The very first banner ads on the internet had click-through rates of over 40%.
40%? That's insane.
It was a novelty. Today, our brains automatically filter out banner ads. The click rate is a fraction of a percent. If your network relies entirely on automated email invites to grow, eventually the broader population develops immunity to those emails, and your viral loop snaps.
But I think the most fascinating ceiling effect is overcrowding. When a network gets too massive, the sheer volume of supply breaks the user experience.
YouTube is the prime example here.
Right. YouTube hit a critical juncture where there were so many millions of videos being uploaded that users couldn't find anything worth watching. The sheer noise drowned out the signal.
Yeah, and YouTube was forced to mechanically alter their platform. They shifted away from a chronological subscription feed to a heavy, algorithmically recommended feed, just to protect the user from the sheer weight of the network.
And for social networks, the ultimate killer at the ceiling is context collapse.
This one is brutal.
This is my absolute favorite concept. Think about the alley effect in reverse. What happens when your pristine, carefully balanced ecosystem is invaded by outside species?
Chaos.
Let's say you join a cool new photo app with your 10 closest friends. The context is intimate, it's sarcastic, it's safe. But because the network is growing exponentially,
Eventually, your parents join.
right, then your boss joins. Then thousands of random angry internet trolls join.
The original context completely collapses. The environment is no longer safe for the behaviors that made it valuable. And when that happens, your hard side, the cool creators who actually generated the interesting content, they abandon the platform for the next new, intimate atomic network.
This is precisely what destroyed Usenet in the early days of the internet, an event famously called the Eternal September.
Yes.
So here's our final mini recap. That brings us to our fifth metric, which is engagement frequency, especially for your hard side. And the fourth network killer mistake is ignoring context collapse when you hit the ceiling.
Exactly. You have to protect the vibe.
So if exponential growth eventually triggers context collapse and overcrowding, how do these massive tech giants survive?
They have to dig a moat. But their massive size is actually their biggest vulnerability. Large platforms like Craigslist are not one single monolithic network. They are a sprawling, unspecialized network of networks.
They are a coral reef.
Yeah. And that makes them highly susceptible to cherry picking.
Cherry picking is the ultimate asymmetric warfare. I mean, Craigslist had a massive platform where you could do anything, sell a used couch, buy a car, find a plumber, or rent a room.
But because they tried to serve every use case, they couldn't specialize in any of them.
So Airbnb came along and acted like a specialized predator. They cherry-picked just one highly lucrative atomic network from Craigslist's short-term room rentals.
And Airbnb peeled that specific network off by offering custom mechanics that Craigslist couldn't support: verified photography, integrated insurance, and secure payment processing. Craigslist couldn't defend that specific atomic network because their resources were spread too thin across thousands of other categories.
It shows that even giants can be dismantled piece by piece. But the giants also destroy themselves by ignoring these rules. Think about what happens when a massive corporation tries to bypass the cold start problem entirely using just brute force and billions of dollars.
Oh, this brings us to the fifth and final network killer mistake: the Big Bang launch by an incumbent. Google Plus is the ultimate cautionary tale here.
What happened there?
Google recognized the threat of Facebook and tried to build a competitor overnight. They utilized their massive capital, ran huge marketing campaigns, and forcefully integrated Google Plus into Gmail and YouTube to instantly generate millions of accounts.
But they forgot the mechanics of the greenhouse.
Exactly.
They built a massive, sprawling digital city and forcibly teleported millions of users into it, but none of those users had established atomic networks with each other. They threw a massive stadium party, but nobody knew who to talk to.
They generated immense scale, but zero density. And without density, the alley effect takes over. The users logged in, saw an empty, disconnected room, and immediately left. Massive capital cannot rewrite the fundamental laws of network ecology.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. We have mapped the entire life cycle. You don't start by conquering the world. You start by surviving the cold start. You manually engineer a tiny, hyperdense atomic network to protect your hard side users.
You hustle and Flintstone your way to the tipping point.
Then you hand the keys over to the software, letting the trio of viral, engaging, and economic loops accelerate you to escape velocity.
But eventually you hit the ceiling. Saturation, overcrowding, and context collapse force you to build a moat to defend your massive ecosystem of nimble startups trying to cherry-pick your best users.
It is a relentless biological cycle of creation, expansion, and defense.
Truly.
So how does this apply to you navigating this digital ecosystem? I want you to look closely at the apps dominating your home screen today. Look at the absolute giants of the industry.
Yeah, which of them is currently hitting their ceiling?
Right. Which platform feels bloated with overcrowding or is actively suffering from context collapse because everyone's boss is now on it? And more importantly, what tiny specialized atomic network could you build to cherry-pick their most valuable users?
That's the real opportunity.
But here is a final thought to leave you with, one that the current frameworks are only just beginning to grapple with. Every mechanic we've discussed today relies on human psychology, human limits on attention, human desires for social validation.
True.
What happens to the cold start problem when the users populating the network aren't human? As we move into an era of autonomous AI agents executing tasks, trading data, and interacting with each other at light speed, does an alley effect even apply to an algorithm? How do you build a moat when software can cherry pick a network in milliseconds? Keep diving deep.